Welcome to the first in a new series. This series, we're focusing on leadership and community and what it takes to build a community, and then more importantly, what it takes to lead. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by the very one and only Mary Schaeffer. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Mary. Mary's not only a friend and a colleague that I've known for many a year, she's the founder of AP Now, an accounts payable speaker, an author of numerous books, and I'll let her tell us all about that in a second. She's a top 100 influencer, and overall, she's an AP guru. Mary, welcome to the show. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself, please.
Thanks, Jamie, and thanks for having me. I'm always in awe when you introduce me. I'm like, who is he talking about? That person sounds much better than me. But so my focus is accounts payable, and I write about all issues related to accounts payable. And I say write, but that's back from the old days. Today, we write, we speak, and basically I share information across all mediums. We have a membership, a fee-based membership at AP Now, but we also have a free e-zine. We have a YouTube channel. We do webinars. If there's a place where I can talk or write about accounts payable, I usually show up. So that's why poor Jamie has to put up with me from time to time.
And you know what, Mary, look, and thank you for that. And there couldn't be any better guest to kick off this brand new series, which is yourself. And I mentioned, in the intro that you and I have been friends, colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
You've been a mentor to myself and our organization in the UK. We're coming off, this is being recorded a couple of weeks post our biggest conference ever. You are a keynote speaker for us. And I just wanted to recognize that, not only as our first guest, but ultimately a huge congratulations for being an award winner, but also being the face of an industry. It really has. And I mentioned in the title that you are an accomplished author, and you're always holding me to task on, being a bit more planned and maybe writing stuff down a little bit more. But tell us a little bit more about that. Before I delve into the real interview, tell me a little bit more about some of the books, what that takes in terms of being an author, because that's always interested me.
So how do you write a book? How do you write an accounts payable or a finance book? Actually, the first two books I wrote, the first one was called Your Dream Vacation Home. It was about buying vacation real estate. And the second one, I'm almost afraid to tell you this, Jamie, because you're going to run. It was called Understanding Interest Rate Swaps, because at the time I was working in a finance position and I did a lot of interest rate swaps and etc. So those were the first two books that I wrote. The third book was an accounts payable book after I'd gone to work for a newsletter company, and our accounts payable newsletter was a huge success. It was a huge success. So when I write a book of this sort, which is basically the only sort I've written about 20 at this point, I always start with an outline. My degrees are in math and finance. And so, I start with an outline. Now, this doesn't mean I stick to the outline. I might rearrange things, and I do. But I start with an outline, and then I start working in all the topics that I want to cover. And then, because I've written so much and I've been writing monthly newsletters for like over 20 years now, I go and look through my existing content and I repurpose it and drop it in. And then I go back and I fill in the holes. But an outline is my basic.
So look, anybody wants to write a book, Mary's just giving you the top 10 tips in writing a book, create the outline. And look, Mary, I've read a majority of your books. I don't think I've read all 20, but I've read a majority of your books. And the great thing is, and as we go through this podcast, I'll ask you the question, because for me, this is like, meeting your childhood hero or heroine and asking questions you've always wanted to know. And look, you touched on this a little bit. So let's start off. Let's talk about the Mary Schaeffer career. So where did it all start, and bring us up to date where you are now? So what did you start in? Was it always accounts payable? Because I'm guessing
no, it was not always accounts payable. Like, they don't do interest rate swaps in accounts payable. So I was a treasury person. I was a finance person. I didn't even set out to do that. It's kind of, I was going to school at night for my MBA, and the company that I was working for had an opening in their treasury department. I think that's kind of how we all, or at least some of us who are not such good planners for the future, end up anyway. So they moved me into treasury. It was my big career move at the time. And so I worked in treasury and finance functions for about 20 years. And towards the end of the time, which was when I wrote those two books, which I had thought would just be a one-shot deal, I started, the company that I was working for was having financial difficulties, shall we say, and eventually did end up going bankrupt. But by the way, they were associated with Canary Wharf, so that's my first UK connection, if you will. But anyway, I decided that I wanted to I would like to try and get a full-time job as a writer. And at that time, and probably still for the most part, writing does not pay as well as corporate finance. So but I had a mortgage and kids, etc. So I looked around and I would apply for jobs, but a lot of jobs I didn't apply for because I couldn't afford to work for the amount of money they were offering. And I remember seeing an ad in the newspaper for this job that I was about to get. And I remember thinking, if you don't get called for an interview for this, then you just better you better give up, because this is perfect for your credentials are perfect. And they obviously thought so too, because I got a call the next day and I went to work for the company. And I went to work for that company writing a newsletter on cash flow and a newsletter on credit receivables, and billing. And everybody there wrote 3 or 4 newsletters. So they were looking around for a third newsletter for me. And the owner said, well, you're doing accounts receivable. How hard could accounts payable be? And I said, no, that's not a good idea, John. And he was like, no. So finally, we went back and forth. Finally, he said to me, look, I hear you. If it fails, nobody will blame you. We understand. So, okay. So as we were preparing, because you do research and you start to get your topics together, I started thinking about it. And I became convinced it was not a bad idea. It was actually a good idea, because I remember when I was in treasury, we always worked with accounts payable, and there was nothing out there at that point. And I was right. The newsletter was launched, and within 9 months, it was the most profitable newsletter the company had. And within a year, it was the biggest one. And it stayed the largest one for as long as I worked there. Eventually, that company got sold. There was some changes that were made, and I'd been thinking about it anyway, and I decided to go out and form AP Now, which when I started was one thing, but just like every other business function, and you've probably experienced this too, Jamie, you have to adapt. So while I started off mainly writing a newsletter and doing some books, because I've been doing books also, it's now evolved into mainly webinars, but still the newsletter. And then, of course, with YouTube and podcasts, we have a YouTube channel with a lot of short AP videos and a podcast. So that's how I but I think that the takeaway here is that you have to evolve. You can't just do whatever it is you know how to do and think that you're going to be successful, because I don't know where that works, but maybe if you're a baker, you can do that. But it doesn't work in the business world today, in my opinion.
No, Mary, I totally agree. And it's lovely to hear your journey and your evolution, similar actually to some of the stuff I've done in my career, in my past. And what's nice to see is that you sort of chose the career, and, yes, there's a financial element to it. You can clearly see that you were the most successful newsletter in that business that then got sold. And then and that's sort of my next question, if you like, is why accounts payable? You're an accomplished speaker, you're an accomplished author, you've got skills in lots of different areas, treasury, I dare say credit, in lots of financial. Tell me a little bit, why accounts payable? Why is this the one that you've stayed with for such a long time?
So when I started out, I knew, at least initially, my initial plan was, at least initially, I had to just do one. And honestly, it was a no-brainer. I could have done AP or I could have done credit at that time. I believe that the AP community was larger. It was less well served. Okay, it was not as well. So the credit community is very well served with organizations, associations, speakers. AP wasn't that well served, and I had an affinity for it. And the community itself throughout this whole time that I've been doing this, even from the beginning, the community has always been, to me, very grateful, and they show their appreciation. And yes, I know we need money, and you're going to tell me, yes, money's important, and it is. We all like to have a roof over our head, but the community and the feedback from the community is really what's my main motivation.
Yeah, lovely. And then you and I both talk about this quite a lot, Mary, that it is hard work.
It is hard work.
Building a community, putting the time and effort into the community is really hard work. But sometimes it's not as financially rewarding as people would like to think it is. And I think we both can probably agree on that. But actually, yeah, it's fulfilling. It's
right.
The bits of career advice I've ever had is find something you love and keep evolving that. Try and you see your passion. And that's the thing I would say, Mary, that the times I've seen you speak publicly, face to face, the amount of times you and I have been on webinars and podcasts, and what comes out absolutely is your absolute love and passion for the industry. And not only have you won awards for this, but you're influential in our community. But I've got to say that the passion comes out hugely, and again, we feed off that. It really is something that we love, and that's where I'd like to go next, if it's possible. Is we both run communities, we both overlap a lot actually in the global community, but let's talk a little bit about the importance of the community, especially in accounts payable. Can you just expand on that for me, Mary? What's your view of community in the world of accounts payable?
So the community, it's basically anybody who wants to be in it. It's the people who participate, and there is a wealth of information there, which I'm always touched when I see how willing people are to share that information and to share their suggestions. Every once in a while, I'll put in one of my e-zines, because somebody's written to me and I don't know the answer, whatever the problem is, how do you deal with blah, 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 blah. And I'm always touched by the number of people who respond saying, oh, they could do this, they could do that, or they could do the other thing. So there's a great wealth of information, and people are willing to share for the most part. And it just makes it a nice place to play, if you will. Especially, and it's a nice place to, if you have to spend your day doing something, it's a wonderful place to be.
Yeah, and again, many times that you and I have done things together in terms of, the community. It's not only a very forgiving community, it's a very supportive community. And it's, when I talk on your shows and people in the States hear this British accent, no doubt they think, oh, it's somebody from Britain giving us a viewpoint. But actually what's lovely is it's a global community we serve.
It's
and
a global community.
The issues we've got here, Mary, no doubt they're the same in the States, and we talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
And what is right, and you're absolutely spot on, is that global willingness to try and help one another, which comes out all the time. And I don't know about you, but it keeps me interested, it keeps me motivated. And is that the same for you?
Yes. Yeah. It's not like you are producing something and, people are like, meh, or, well, that's what you got paid for, or they'll say thank you. I hear thank you a lot. And, every once in a while I'll get an email about something, and then somebody will write at the bottom, thank you for what you do for our community. And to me, that's worth more than, I don't want to say $1 million, because that would be a lie, but it's it's more than, it means a lot to me, and it really touches me. So I think I get more back from the community than I give.
All right, well, look, and there you heard it here first on this podcast. Mary thinks she gets more. Look, I think it's a two-way street. I'm been a big fan of what you've been up to in the AP world for some time, and I honestly believe that the community get an awful lot from you. And you're probably not aware of the stuff that you do. Look, you were at a conference not so long ago, and when I see a line of people waiting to get a signed book from the great Mary Schaeffer, there's no getting away. But that was a visual. That was a representation of people wanting to talk to you, get a bit of a guidance from you, get a signed book. There was a visual there. So look, you give an awful lot to that community. So don't give me that one, Mary. Yeah, it's a two-way.
So I got a lot from that, in that I got to talk to all these people, most of whom, some of them I knew, to be fair. Some of them I knew, but most of them I didn't know, and I had all these wonderful conversations. So probably that was the highlight of the conference for me.
So let me talk about that. So look, Mary, you've been doing this for a number of years, and you and I both know what amount of work goes into running a community of whatever size. It's hard work. Every day you've got to be at it, 7 days a week. You know, it's not 5 days. The 2 days you have off are weekends, are planning. You're already thinking of the ideas. And look, you come up with conceptually some of the best ideas. Yeah, and you tell me you come up with some really dud ones as well that don't work. You know, in your own.
Yes, I do. Yes, occasionally they don't work. I'm like, gee, I thought that was great.
And look, one of the ones that you did recently was this whole Wordle in terms of YouTube channel. And let's be honest, that's seen phenomenal growth for you. But
yes, it has.
yeah,
it was a big surprise. So you know why I did that originally? Because I wanted to do something at Christmas and I couldn't come up with an idea. And then when I saw Wordle, which became big in the United States in early January, I thought, well, I couldn't do anything for the community at Christmas, but I can tell them how to play Wordle in January. So I just did it as a one-off. And all of a sudden I was like, I had on YouTube, the views like out the door. I'm like, what's going on? Oh, it's Wordle. But I'm not stupid. It took me about 8 days to realize it. And on the 10th day, I had another Wordle video out there.
But again, you know what, Mary? And again, you and I, we talk all the time about how we can engage with our communities, the different platforms we use, YouTube and, you know, social media and all this sort of stuff. And that's the reason that I think, again, my question really is now is the motivational question. It's how do you keep motivated? You know, I find it difficult myself. I have a team of people that come up with ideas and concepts. What keeps you motivated, and what tips can you give others that are in a community role or trying to build a community? What keeps you motivated?
So it's the people. Also, let me see, how am I going to say this? Don't look for outside, whatever, to keep you going. You need to do what you think is right, what you want to do, what you like doing, and sometimes even if you don't like it, what you think needs to be done. So when I put sometimes I'll put a topic out there. There's one topic, I'll tell you what it is off screen. I'm not going to tell you what it is on screen, that I've now done 3 times and it never flies. But I think it's important. So it gets some views, but not a lot of views. But I think it's important, and so I do it. And I'm not so much worried about the outside community liking what I'm doing, if I think it's the right thing. Now, they have to like what you're doing at some point, because otherwise, you're going to be out there by yourself with no roof over your head. But feedback from the community. I like to say my secret skill is I can talk to somebody, and after that conversation, I have 3 or 4 ideas for things that I could talk about. So sometimes people will say, accounts payable, like, what do you talk about? Don't you run out of topics? No, never. And sometimes they work, and sometimes, like the most important ones, nobody else thinks is important, but that's okay. And so you have to, some of that motivation has to come from you yourself.
Yeah, and Mary, look, again, because I know your content, I watch it, I read it, I go through it, and it always amazes me. You're right, it's a superpower. You have a superpower of being able to talk to somebody, and at the end of a conversation, whether it's a minute, 10 minutes, you come out with content, you come out with ideas for content, and whether they work or they don't work, it's that constant. You're constantly trying to evolve, you're constantly trying to motivate. Right. And again, it's remarkable to see. So please keep it up. Keep doing what you're doing, because I know the people listening to this podcast will no doubt be jumping onto your YouTube channels. They'll be going on all over the AP Now website, and so you should. You'll learn so much from all the knowledge that Mary gives, and all the content she gives out, and the guests and the knowledge, which is really important. So let me ask you this question, Mary. If you, I'm looking forward to this answer, by the way. If you could do it all over again, so you're going to start your career over again, firstly, would you do it? And secondly, what lessons have you learned that you might do something slightly differently?
So yes, I would do it. I have 3 things, which I've alluded to one of them already. The first one that I would do when I first started out, I don't want to say I was afraid of my own shadow, but I would not speak up, and I would not and I remember in one of my first jobs, we got a raise at 6 months, and I was unhappy in the job because I didn't have enough work to do. Can you imagine that? And I was determined not to complain until after I got my raise because I thought it would affect my raise. And finally, at like 5 months and 2 weeks, I couldn't stand it anymore, and I went in and complained about it. Probably not in the best way. I will say that. And so my boss said to me, "Oh, you want more work? Well, why didn't you just say something? I would have given it to you." And he did. So I would say speak up. Probably think a little bit about the words that are going to come out of your mouth. Plan it a little better than I did. Don't always have it as a complaint, but speak up. If you have something to say, don't be afraid to speak up. So I would say that. The second one we were talking about is I have a propensity, and this is in my personal life also, to stay too long. And I can think of 2 job instances where I stayed too long. Now, I'm not saying quit every time you're not happy about something. You want to give something your all. You want to try everything that you can try. But there comes a time when you have to say, you know what? Unfortunately, this isn't going to work. And then move on. But really, before you do that, give it your all. And one of the things I am proud to say is anytime I have moved on, it wasn't without really giving it all, so there's no looking back. And the third one, which I kind of alluded to, is don't care so much what other people think and whether they like you. Do what you think is right. And oftentimes, and I have one, it's a long story, so I won't share it with you online. One story, one instance where I was sure the chief operating officer did not like me. I was just sure he did not like me. And the truth of the matter was just the direct opposite. No, he liked me, and apparently he liked me a lot in a good way. I don't mean that in a bad way. So don't care so much what other people think. Do what you think is right, and you'll get there.
Yeah, I love all 3 of those, but I especially love that last one, Mary. I think you're absolutely right. You know, you and I we're big advocates of trying to bring people through, get them to talk, share their voices, share their opinions. And sometimes it's not all about the confidence of how you speak and the message you've got. It's whether people are going to put you down, they're going to disregard. And your message there really is quite poignant. You know, anybody who's watching or listening this, listen, Mary's a guru, but she never started off as a guru. She's made all the mistakes.
Right.
And no doubt
more. Some of them twice.
And you know what, Mary? You and I will make mistakes as we go on. But actually, what we're willing to do every day is turn up, learn from everything we go through, make sure that the community at large, we're listening to them. You know, that's the thing I know you do an awful lot, is listening. But also not be afraid to give your opinion. Yeah, you've got to be careful with how you portray your opinion. I think we've both been in trouble for that one in the past. But
yes.
but show up, listen, and actually give your opinion really is valuable. And, you know, Mary, you look at the 10, 20, 30 people that said they want to talk to you and come on stage and go through the program, whatever it will be from the conference. They've got lots of mediums to do that, but it starts with having that sort of voice. You and I talk an awful lot about having the voice of accounts payable, the voice just generally, you know, whether you're male or female, go and you've got a voice for a reason. Go and give that voice out to that, to whatever it is. Don't be afraid. I think a brilliant piece of advice, Mary. And look, you know, I know you stand for that in all the mediums you do, the books and whatever, but I can't stress enough that you've got to go and find your voice and you've got to go and talk it through.
Yep. And you hit on something, Jamie. Listen. Really listen to what people are saying. And sometimes, and you probably do it too, when you go home at night, you think about what was said. And sometimes by reflecting back on those conversations, you'll come up with some great ideas.
Yeah. And you know, the other thing I'd say, Mary, is, and again, I mean this in a complimentary way, be humble. You are very humble with your approach. You know, you've gone through a great career. You found your niche. You found what you're really good at, you know, which is utilizing all your skills. You're influencing a community that really need that influence and need that support, but you're really humble. You know, like you say all the time, and we talk this through, every day is a learning day. You should be learning every day, no matter what role, what position you are, whether you're the founder, the chief executive, whatever your job is, every day is a learning day. You should humble in your approach. And again, I know you've used those words many a time, but I love it. I just absolutely love that.
Because if you don't have learning days, Jamie, after a while, you're not going to have earning days.
Hey, look, that I'll take that one to the bank. That one, I will borrow that one in inverted commas. I love that one. If you don't have learning days, you don't have earning days. And you know what? And anybody, there you go. Look, there's the calls coming in already. People are already getting that one. They love that one, Mary. But again, what the point being there is, if you're listening from the AP world or in the business community, because this podcast is aimed at lots of people in the community, the reality is, if you're not listening and learning, then don't expect your community, your people, your followers to actually then continue to pay for the services you give. That's the reality.
Right.
You've got to be listening, actively listening. You've then got to be learning, and then you've got to give back to your community. So I get it. I love that one, by the way, Mary. I'm borrowing that one. Let's say that one. So look, let's talk a little bit about the future. It's been extraordinary to talk to you today and learn more about Mary Schaeffer. But let's get your crystal ball out. So I want to talk a little bit about leadership and community. What do you see specifically for the accounts payable community, and with all the the evolving technology such as this platforms, and what can people do to continue to learn and evolve in that leadership and community area?
So first of all, I want to say the field, and this is true probably in every business field and maybe even some non-business field. The field is changing. Just accept that it's changing, and this change produces lots of opportunity, but only if you continue to learn so you can continue to earn. So there's lots of opportunity, but you absolutely must stay current. And I have some tips at the end on how to do it and how I do it. I still try and do it every day. Okay, so it's changing. Accept it. It's an opportunity. But you've got to take advantage. Okay, so speaking of that opportunity, the real opportunity, and again, this is not only true for accounts payable, but I believe the whole business world. The opportunity is going to be, the real opportunity is for those people who can look at a function and see where there is an opportunity for change. They can make recommendations for those change, and then they can implement those changes. And that's just something you do. You need to look at everything with kind of a skeptical eye. How can we do it better? Sometimes you learn something over here that you can use over here, and you just have to learn how to build it all and integrate it in. One of the things that I see is the accounts payable function seems to be the function that's getting hit the hardest, the first, with the new technology. And part of that is because invoice processing just lends itself to. And so the people in accounts payable who learn about it, learn the options, learn how to implement it, will have skills that maybe they can take to other functions when those other functions, I don't know, 5 or 10 years from now, go through the same thing. And the third issue, and this really speaks to leadership, is make sure you give others credit. Don't try and hog the spotlight for yourself. Don't take all the credit, especially don't take credit for something that someone who works for you did. People feel like it diminishes them, but it doesn't diminish them. It actually makes you appear much brighter and much more capable, and also not afraid of your own shadow. So don't feel, oh, if I give Jamie credit, he's going to get promoted and he'll be ahead of me. It really won't work like that. So make sure you give as much credit as you can. I think.
Gold advice as always, Mary. And you know what? I couldn't agree more in terms of the future, the leadership, the community. Look, we've all been through some torrid times, and the future is now. This is where you embrace it. You either use the technology, use the opportunity, and listen to people such as Mary. Go and take these bits of advice and guidance and try and make something, whether that's something in your career, in your personal life, in your sporting life, whatever it will be. Take some of these tips and guidance and take them for your future. So look, Mary, before we close out today, and it's been exceptional, I promise you that it's been a boyhood dream for me today. So thank you so much. Top tip: if you could do 3 things slightly differently in either your career or any bit of advice, what would your 3 lasting top tips would you give to our audience?
So the first one I don't think is different, but I just want to re-emphasize it. So, we talk about continual learning, and people will say, I don't have time, I'm busy. And they're right. Okay, people are working, not 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day. And they think, so what you want to do is carve out a piece of time where you can learn. So for me, I'll tell you what I do. Every day when I eat lunch, I either watch a YouTube video or a TED Talk. Sometimes I read, but to be honest, watching a video, then I can have my hands to eat. So that's basically why I do that. And sometimes I only have 15 minutes, but I do it every day and on all sorts of topics, not just AP, although AP definitely is a big topic, but technology, management, public speaking, getting promoted, Excel, PowerPoint, everything that would impact your career. You want to pick. And if it's a tired day, then you pick something that's a little lighter. My friend Lynn Lawson, who Jamie knows, she's another one of the top 10 influencers. She does it every afternoon when she takes a break for a cup of tea, and she spends 15 minutes, watching various TED Talks. So you can find your space. You have a lot on the AP channel, on the association channel. You have a lot of things. So just get into the habit, even if it's only 15 minutes. You can't just say, well, Saturday will be my day for learning, because by 4 o'clock, if you're trying to spend all Saturday, it's going to be kind of ugly. Okay, that's number one. Number two, don't be discouraged by no. To me, no means, well, no, obviously, but then you want to go back and look at it. Is there a different way to approach it? Or maybe that's not a good idea and I should try something else. But don't get discouraged. Everybody gets told no one or more times. And in fact, there have been stories, and I wish I had some examples, but I didn't have time to look at them. But a number of the very successful CEOs and business leaders have been fired from jobs for their performance. Okay. And the last thing, and I don't do this enough, I should do it more, is to learn from what happens to you, both the good and the bad. And I definitely do this with the bad. When something bad happens to me, I always go back and analyze, how did it happen? How did I get myself into this mess? And how can I make sure it doesn't happen again? Okay, that's a good thing to do. But also do it when something goes right, when you have a big success. Okay, I had this big success. What did I do to make it happen? And what can I do to make it happen again? Because let's face it, if it's a success, we want to repeat it. So learn from your experiences, I guess is what I would say. And also, if you see something good or something bad happen to somebody else, see if you can learn from it. Not by talking to them about it, especially if it's a bad thing. They're not going to want to talk to you about it, but learn from not only your own experiences, but others.
Love it. Love it. It's been an absolute pleasure today. Please, what I'm going to suggest, Mary, is that people watch and listen back to this podcast. There's so much content in, so many bits of guidance, that it's been an absolute pleasure to interview you today.
Do you have any tips, Jamie?
Do you know what? I'm going to follow up on your tip, Mary. It's on that, it's giving back wherever you possibly can. I'm going to close out this podcast with an ask. I'm going to ask people to go like, share, and comment, and give thought to your channel and my channel. The only way we can ever grow and continue to grow and keep a voice is to like, share, and comment. Right. And so my request and my ask is, jump onto the AP Association, go and have a look at what we do there, go and look at our YouTube channels and all the content, but actually go and look at Mary's, the AP Now. I promise you, hundreds of videos, hundreds of bits of content. And the only way as a community we will continue to improve is to like, share, and comment. So my ask is, give back. It doesn't always have to be paid. Give forward, pay forward. And I think that's the thing. And the bit that I learned from you, Mary, is always, the more you give, the more you'll receive. So like, share, comment. It's been an absolute pleasure to interview you today. I hope we can do this again at some point. For everybody that's listening or watching in, do it. Go and look below. Go and like, share, comment. Give your views on this. We really want to have that. Right. Mary, any final words before we wrap up for today?
No, except I'm so jealous of you going to the House of Lords on December 6th. I'm just jealous. I looked at my calendar. There's no way I could come. My husband's probably, oh, thank God. But yes.
Lovely. Thank you, Mary. And look, again, if we can and we can help in any way, you've got two organizations who absolutely sit in this community space, reach out to either of us. Our details will be below. Thank you for listening or watching in today, and hopefully we'll see you on the next episode of the Leadership and Community Podcast. Thank you.
I look forward to it, Jamie. Take care.
Thank you, Mary.